Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our Monday weather update recorded on the 20th of January. Well, our summer weather carries on across the country. Now, it depends on who you talk to. Some people, myself included, I like a good tropical storm and tropical weather, but I'm also absolutely loving the fact that it's not as hot and humid this year. Other people, depends on where you live, of course, some especially in the South Island, not so happy with some of the lower temperatures. And if you're in the Eastern North Island, more complaints about the cloud and the wet weather we've been seeing. So we've got this large low at the moment in the Tasman Sea. That is driving down this tropical airflow that, unfortunately for those who want that hot, humid weather, stops just short of the country. Easterly winds coming in for many other parts of the top of the North Island. It is windy from sort of about Auckland northwards. Coromandel Peninsula partially included in that. Great Barrier Island, hello to our viewers from there. Probably the windiest in the Auckland region, but certainly going up around Lee and Wellsford and going up more towards Whangarei. You're certainly seeing that windy or feeling that windy easterly blowing on through. And then we'll get the rain coming down tonight. It's a squash zone. What's a squash zone? Well, when you've got a cyclone or a storm, tropical cyclone over here, by the way, we'll talk about that in a second. When you've got a low pressure system like this, if it's deep enough, the air pressure that is, you can get gale force winds all the way around it. This low is very weak, doesn't have gale force winds all the way around it, but you might be hearing about wind warnings or the possibility of them at the top. That's a squash zone where it's a straight line wind between the low and the high. So you just find where the low is, the center of that, center of the high, and in the middle, right here, that is that straight line wind. It's a northeasterly coming through across the top of the country. So we've got that going on, but the low looks bigger and nastier than it is. But as that squash zone, that windy easterly moves southwards overnight tonight and into Tuesday, that wet weather will come with it. Let's jump over to here. Tropical Cyclone Sean forms around Western Australia. At the time of recording this on Monday morning, it was a severe Category 3 cyclone. The good news is it's mostly offshore, so it's not going to cause any problems for Australia. And just interestingly, it's going to drop down here into the Southern Ocean. Let's show you the longer range map. So it goes past places like Port Hedland, out to sea, completely misses places like Geraldton. But if you're in Perth, you might get some showers afterwards. Why am I telling New Zealanders about this? Because the leftovers are likely to drop into the Southern Ocean, and just more of an interesting thing to note, that they may well end up reaching New Zealand with the westerly flow and hit the west coast as some showers. You won't notice that it was once a tropical cyclone, but it's just kind of interesting to see the life journey of a storm that started up near Darwin and will probably end up somewhere around Greymouth by the end of it. Not as a storm, just got to repeat that again. Not as a cyclone, just the leftovers, just a cold front coming through like we normally would see. Okay, let's get into the forecast now. So here we are, 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. This squash zone, this straight line sort of east to northeasterly wind, it starts to track southwards. As the low comes into Northland and the far north, the winds die down. So windiest weather will track down on Tuesday morning around probably sort of the western side of Coromandel Peninsula, the eastern side of Waikato, which is the same area. That western side of Coromandel Peninsula, basically all the way down here. So we're windy nor'easters, that's kind of normal when you get a nor'east flow like that. Hello to everybody in Te Aroha, my hometown in Waikato. It'll be a bit windy with that nor'easter blowing through and some rain for the campers and some wind. But hey, it wouldn't be January over in places like Hot Water Beach and Hahei and Cooks Beach without getting a big strong wet easterly at least once in January. And I know that because I used to camp there as a kid. And every year, every January, we got a storm that ripped the tent. Okay, maybe not every January, but pretty close to it. Enough for me to remember it. Okay, here we are on Wednesday, and the low to the north weakens further. It's moving across the top of the country. Sorry if you live about sort of East Cape, Gisborne, down towards sort of Hawke's Bay, you will get more of that wet, cloudy easterly. And I know that you're a bit over it more than other parts of New Zealand. The nor'easter carries on down around the South Island on Wednesday, but it is dry. Now on Thursday, got a bit of a change coming through, a colder change. Now, it's not as bad as it was a week ago when we first talked about it. See the blue line though, that's subantarctic air below it. Now, it's coming up pretty close to Southland, Stewart Island, Fiordland on Thursday. There's a cold front ahead of it. So a burst of west coast rain, and then that colder southerly kicks on in. It's not brutal, but it's, not summer, put it that way. And then further up around the North Island, a few showers, possibly heavy into the afternoon. Remember, the low pressure zone is nearby. That makes for instability, and believe it or not, it's still summer And so daytime heating plays a part into that. Into the weekend, not a great deal of change. Very weak high pressure. 10, 13, that's smack bang on average air pressure around the planet. So this is not a big strong high, but it's just enough to kind of like elbow away these rainmakers. The low out here moving away, a couple of showers here and there. Now we've got a low forming in the Tasman as we go into the weekend, but it's more about this storm south of Tasmania, because as we go into Saturday, forget the Tasman low, just immediately merges with this giant low south of the country. NIWA, the headline from them, scratching their heads, not sure what's going on with summer because they put all their eggs in one basket, the La Nina basket. We didn't do that at Weather Watch. We were talking a lot, exclusively, about how stormy the Southern Ocean is this summer. And look at this. Here we are on the end weekend of January, and we've still got big storms down around the Southern Ocean, and that's going to make for windy weather ahead of it. This is what I mean by a spring or autumn-like weather forecast. So windy nor'westers will kick in, very weak high pressure to the top of the country. By far, this is the most dominant feature of our weather map, the storm in the Southern Ocean. But it'll probably be quite hot on Saturday as that nor'wester cranks up, unless you've got the nor'easter. That's not quite as warm in most places. And then on Sunday, in comes the cold front. Look at the blue line coming in. Now, I'm laughing a wee bit because we're in the middle of summer and suddenly there's going to be snow on the mountains and ranges. Think about that. But it happened last year. There were frosts in Southland last year because this is New Zealand, right? The top end is closer to the subtropical area, the bottom end closer to the subantarctic area. We're like the porridge in the middle, not too hot, not too cold. But if you live at the north, it can get a bit hot, and if you live at the south, it can get a little cold. Hope that analogy works for you. So southerlies and windy weather on Sunday, but we've got high pressure nearby, so it's not the end of the world. But we do see a bit of an unsettled weekend coming up this weekend, and going into February, more of the same down here. So you might hear a lot of talk still about La Nina from NIWA. NIWA seems very confused about what's happening this summer, but the Australian government, the Bureau of Meteorology there, they've been very consistent about what is going on. And so we continue to track what they are saying. They're not commercial like NIWA is. They provide a lot of open public data for us to use and make our own opinion from, which is pretty cool. So for now, we are kind of in this weird situation where it's summer, we're in peak summer, but not everybody feels it. And so hopefully we do see some good summer weather coming into February. Remember, some of our hottest weather is in February and sometimes even into March. So we're not done yet, don't worry. That's all from me for today though. We'll see you again on Wednesday. No video from us on Tuesday. Back again on Wednesday. We'll see you then.